We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Aligned. I'm your host, Tom Owen. I'm also president of a little group that's out there doing some work in the chiropractic field. At least I think we're doing some good out there, but that group, that company is named Aligned, or short AMC. But in the studio today, I have got a rock star for you folks. And those of you that know this guy, you love anytime he gets the microphone at an AMC summit, the room gets charged. There's a different level of energy. But I've got the one and only Dr. J.P. Whittaker in the house today. So Dr. J.P., welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
It's always good to be with you, my friend. Oh man, well, good gracious. It's hard to believe we're knocking on the door of halfway through 2024. It's
Already.
It's crazy.
Great.
I'm telling you, when you get to your mid-50s, it all goes fast. I can tell you. I know they used to tell us that, but I was like, it's a different level. But anyway, there's a lot going on in that AMC. In fact, I think you've been able to partake in some of those classes as well. But those Thursday afternoon classes on patient retention and referrals,
Yeah, that's real good stuff. Real good stuff. Putting some meat on the bone, so to speak, and cutting away the fat that we don't need. Yeah, it's been real good.
Well, that's one way to put it. And then the depth and genius classes, man, I keep trying to go back to we have our weekly director/management meetings, and I keep talking to them going, well, all right, now we've uncovered something here. How are we going to consistently, dive into this material in that fashion while also adding the components of all the other facets of depth and genius that everyone's come used to over the years. So I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll get it done. Always have to have
it's working. Whatever the format is I've been using is working.
Well, whatever it takes. All right. Well, let's just start diving in. First of all, there has been a lot going on inside of AMC. Everyone loves it. Like I said earlier, whenever JP gets the microphone, the messages that you bring on our Abundant Life Friday evenings, the room's usually packed in there to hear you, JP, but I hear you've been up to something here recently. You've been crisscrossing the country, and I hear about it, and, I'm like, well, he didn't tell me anything about that. I feel left out, but obviously you've got something in your craw, man. You are passionate about it. And I'll give you a minute just to tell everybody what you've been up to. And I think that'll probably feed into what you actually wanted to make the talk about on the show. Why don't I just hand it over to you? What have you been up to, JP?
All right, first thing I want to give a shout out to Dr. Tara Horrell. She has been killing it. She's my partner in crime, so to speak. Definitely making sure that we are getting the word out about aligned mentoring for chiropractors, what it can do for your practice, what it can do for your mindset even more. I'll probably say this is more of a personal development model, but you apply it to a chiropractic clinic. I think that's really what it is. And it's a beautiful thing. Like, you catch these principles, they're going to work all the way through your life. And there's a lot of different areas of your world that will get impacted and touched. Specifically, been sharing this stuff, been sharing access to AMC, been sharing the word about what's being done, what it can help with, what it can do for you. And I've been doing it specifically in some of the chiropractic colleges across the country. There is a group, the American Black Chiropractic Association, when they have regional meetings. And I've been going to these regional meetings, meeting up with minority docs who need the help, definitely getting these words to students who have no idea what's coming. have probably no idea what's going on either. So putting the word out, letting them know you can be successful. Even with students, you can be successful, initially. It doesn't take 8 years of grinding in somebody else's office first. Like, you can actually come out, put your head down, go to work, get your own practice started, and be profitable month one, which is unheard of most of the time. So definitely making sure that this community of chiropractic is getting impacted as well. I think we all know that the chiropractic profession, just as a whole, doesn't treat most of the population of America. That's just not the case. That's not the case. I think the typical statistics are we treat about 10% of the population in America. Well, it's even smaller than that when you start talking about minority communities. And typically, I don't think this is intentional by any means, but it happens. People go where they identify. A lot of times, the minority doc treats the minority community. But if the minority doc is struggling with business and practice, then that community is definitely going to get nowhere near the care that they deserve and nowhere near the care that they need. So we're trying to get this word out and make sure everybody can benefit from chiropractic as they need to, and make sure we can keep these communities as healthy as possible. That's what we're doing.
I'd like to have your Sky Miles account with the way you've been flying. JP, when you say it that way, I remember the first time you and I ever talked about that. You just opened my eyes. There's always been a demand for what AMC does. I mean, that they've never taught it in school. They're never going to teach it in school. In fact, I can actually say that now. They are never going to teach it in school because they're getting further and further away from it. They're getting further and further away from our identity as chiropractors, our value systems, our purpose, our beliefs. It's just getting further. And if you don't know who you are, how are you going to execute any form of a system? I feel pretty confident in that. But, I remember that breakfast when you shared this passion that you had about the minority chiropractors, that they not only are they underserved, in some circles they're not even wanted, and then they don't feel like they have anywhere to turn. So not only are they underprepared or ill-prepared when they come out of school, they're not even prepared for what's about to hit them. Then they don't feel like there's anywhere that they can go to plug in to get what they need. And that has driven you to take on this mission.
Yeah, I found family with AMC. Found a lot of people who love me, who actually care, want to see me prosper and succeed. And most of them don't look like me, which is, the way that's supposed to go. Person to person, heart to heart. It's not skin tone to skin tone. So yeah, just the fact that I found that myself and not even knowing how much I needed it, I felt compelled to go share it with somebody else. So in a way, I've tried to be a bridge. Tried to be a bridge between what AMC offers, what Align stands for, and the communities that may either never hear about it or wouldn't believe it or trust it if they did. Mm-hmm. Definitely wanted to reach out, make sure everybody knew this was real, this is legitimate, and this is for you.
Yep, and you're making an impact. Just ask Lakendra Fulbright, Pascal Biggums, the Louises. I can just go on down the list of people that are being impacted from your efforts. So with that, let's jump into the show. I think we're well into it, and we haven't even gotten into a topic, but I think your story ties into what you wanted to dive into today, because I think what you wanted to talk about is what you're seeing out there in the chiropractic world while you're traveling. And there's 3 components that we really wanted to hone in on, which is philosophy, technique, and your business values, right? Or your business systems. And I'm gonna give you the microphone. It was your idea that you wanted. It was your topics, right? But I'll let you take a spin on it. But I think it's going to be an interesting turn when we realize what are the building blocks to all 3. Each one of those, your philosophy, or whatever you think chiropractic is, right? That's what I'm talking about. Your technique, the spec of your technique, and then your business and your values will all four have the building blocks to it. But let me turn it over to you, because this was something that you're seeing and experiencing, and you wanted to bring it to the show today.
Yeah, and because I say each side of that triangle between the technique, the philosophy, and the business principles, you got to be solid in each one. And this is a big part of my story. I wasn't for a real long time. I definitely wasn't. No knock on any school in particular, anything like that. But I know when I came out of school to be a chiropractor, I can't tell you I really knew what chiropractic was. So far as just what I knew about, what I heard about, the jobs were in workers' comp and PI. I knew I needed a paycheck when I came out of school. I'd done all of this stuff. I had this debt, took these classes, took these these board exams to go ahead and get licensed as a doc. Now I got to work. And that's all I knew about. There was an entirely different side of chiropractic that I really had not heard much about, had not experienced, wasn't exposed to in school. And it got to a point for me to where I did workers' comp and PI for about the first 5 years. And I honestly got discouraged and was ready to quit chiropractic. I was done. And I was maybe 2 weeks away from going to get an MCAT review book so I could go be a medical doctor. And what happened was I ended up, as God would have it, meeting up with a group of old school chiropractors. They've been practicing for about 20 years already, were passionate about it, loved what they did. And I'm looking at, why do y'all like this stuff so much? I didn't get it. And they opened my eyes to true chiropractic, philosophy-based, subluxation-based, taking care of the spine to affect people's health. And it got my passion back up. But, that kind of started it. But so far as this triangle, so to speak, definitely needed some boning up on each one of them. So far as the technique, I say this to anybody I speak to, the reason why technique is important, I don't advocate any specific technique. It's completely up to somebody what they want to do. But the things that each technique has in common is, number one, it's going to show you how to find the subluxation. Number two, going to tell you what to do to correct the subluxation. And number three, it's going to tell you how to check to see if you actually corrected the subluxation. So we need that. We definitely need that. That's how you affect change. The adjustment is how you affect people's health. What some would call miracles. You free up innate intelligence in the body and it's actually able to function like God designed it. All bets are off of what kind of healing is possible. Definitely have seen a lot of different scenarios that people did not think they had answers for be healed up through a chiropractic adjustment and chiropractic treatment. That's a beautiful thing. But without the philosophy base behind that, you won't even see that's a possibility, nor will you attempt to have that happen, because you may not think it's real.
I think your philosophy, and we're using a taboo word when we say philosophy, your belief in or understanding of what chiropractic is and can be, actually it mirrors your technique. Because the stronger the philosophy, the stronger that value, the odds are the more likely you are to be very stringent in your technique. In other words, so I'm not advocating any one technique, right? I grew up, obviously everybody knows I grew up around Gonstead, literally around the man himself. But, upper cervical work for that matter, you're not going the upper cervical route to all that it takes, regardless if it's knee chest or atlas orthogonal, orthospinalogy, NUCA. You're not doing any of those without a really strong chiropractic value system, because that's a lot of work to get certified and take it to that level, that depth. And, and then and it would be surprising to everybody that your business systems tie in or should tie into your philosophy. And I know you've got a testimony to that as well. Once you got fired up around, what you called it, the old timers, right? Your You took your technique to a different level. You've gotten more interested in the last 4 or 5 years since you and I really started working together, right, JP? That's part of your story. Yeah, your story starts way back when you came out of school and you just had to make a paycheck somewhere, right, and in the PI world. But you went through a transformation about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was when we honed in on your identity, when you really started listening to me and I said, JP, what is your identity? Who are you? What are you? What do you hold in your two hands when you've got your hands on these patients? What is that? And when you started taking on that identity of understanding the value, remember, your outcome is going to be directly related to your identity, your values, your purpose, and your belief system. All 4 of those, your ultimate outcomes, whether it's what you want or not what you want, can be tracked back to those. And for the longest time in chiropractic, you were running loose specifically on your identity. You didn't know what you were. You had DC behind your name, but you really didn't have an identity of what does it mean to be a chiropractor? Your value system was whatever the insurance company might bother to pay you. What's the value of a subluxation? What's the value of that patient and their care and their condition on that table, right? What's your belief system? Well, belief system, if you didn't know any better, you could still be stuck in the musculoskeletal, just get them out of pain and refer them out. Why would anybody do that if they knew what chiropractic was? Why would you ever run or utilize that belief system in a practice? If your belief system is, I'm a Band-Aid, I'm temporary care, my job is just to whatever it takes to get them out of pain, and then if I can't get them out of pain, I refer them out. That's a belief system, because it's the exact opposite for, let's say, our good friend that you and I know, Dr. Todd Osborne. He's never going to treat a patient that way, right? And Dr. Osborne has gone to great lengths to his depth of technique, perfecting his technique, his depth and value of chiropractic. Well, his belief system drives the fact that why else would he have a 90 PVA? His average patient stays with him 90 patient visits. Is he recommending 90 patient visits in a year? No. His average patient stays with him year after year after year. Why? Because Dr. Osborne's belief system is it's easier to stay healthy than it is to get healthy. That's an easy belief system, isn't it? Last but not least, your purpose. Your purpose, if your purpose is that check, if your purpose is the next new patient so the bills are paid, if your purpose is to tie a bigger boat up in your back, put it on a trailer in a backyard, or the next sports car, if that's your purpose, you're never going to go very far. When you get your purpose on what's the purpose of chiropractic, transforming the Houston area, your purpose will eventually get to where you're flying around all over the country. People are meeting JP, they're seeing him online, they're hearing his speeches, and so on, and all of a sudden you're going to be the next Clarence Gonstead. People are going to be flying to Houston to see JP. Why? Because JP had a bigger purpose, and people tune into that purpose, and they are drawn to a bigger purpose. Your identity, your value, and your belief and your purpose all interact with the very subjects that you wanted to talk about today, JP. And I want to circle back, throw it back to the microphone to you, but your story mirrors that to me. You came out, you had no identity, you had zero value as to what you were, because you didn't know were you a glorified physical therapist. You didn't know, am I an expert massage therapist? I don't know what I am. So your identity, your value, belief system was for the birds, right? And there was no purpose. right? That's the reason why you wanted to just walk away and go back and be an MD. There was no purpose to it. Then you got plugged into a little group called AMC. You got introduced to it. And even then your life didn't change. You know, that's the part of the story I want you to tell. When did those three things come into a clearer vision, and how did those four building blocks change your life?
Definitely. You helped with all of this. Just you recognizing that I guess I needed to bone up in the areas of identity, belief, purpose, and value. So I appreciate you for, seeing that and calling that out. But it was about 4 years ago. I guess kind of the light bulb went off, or went on, so to speak. And just starting to realize that this thing was bigger than I thought it was. And you were right. So far as identity is concerned, coming out of school, I really felt like I was a wonderful medical doctor referral source. I knew exactly where to send the patient, what specialist to send them to for whatever issue they had. I can't do much for it, but I know exactly who to shoot you to. You got a stomach problem? Gastroenterologist. Yeah, I really thought that's what it was about. That's what I learned. But when the results in my own office actually started happening, okay, it's something to this. Let me dig in even more. As the practice grew, and I'm using the business systems that AMC has laid out, my belief in the business systems went, okay, this stuff actually works. Let me dig in even more. So as I'm adjusting, taking care of people, and realizing that a better adjustment, a more specific adjustment brings even greater results, let me dig into this technique thing even more. It's a deeper dive on all fronts when you start to see not just the trees, but you can see the forest. When the bigger picture starts to show up, it gives you more clarity into where you're going, what should be done, and the possibilities of what's down the line if you dig in and start hitting this stuff as hard as it can be hit.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I remember when we sat at a restaurant and looked across there, and I could see that the identity, the value, the belief, the purpose was not there. But what I did see, and I want everybody listening to the show today to understand that, JP, let me ask you a quick question, stats-wise, because we talked about business. How does your technique, your philosophy, and your business systems and values tie in? And I said something earlier that said, your results, okay, everybody listening, your results will always be a byproduct or a result of your identity, value, beliefs, and purpose. So I'm going to take back to 4 or 5 years ago when JP and I were sitting in Denver, Colorado at a little Chinese restaurant, and we would say it was a happenstance meeting. We didn't have it on our calendar or schedule. It just happened. And I was sitting there and I was listening to this lost, I'm just going to be honest. It was lost, guys. This guy, this passionate guy that's crisscrossing the country was lost. He didn't have a voice. He had no confidence to talk about any of this. And yet, this is the point of the show. And yet, I could see in his eyes, you said skin tone earlier today, in this show. The skin tone ain't got nothing to do with it. I saw in the spirit of the man that this guy had potential. And I want every listener to understand, you all have God-given potential. But potential is simply truth in waiting. What do I mean by that? Everybody listening has potential locked within you that you might not believe, you might not identify with, you might not have the value system in place to unlock it. You might not even have the big enough purpose. But make no mistake about it, everybody listening has potential that God has designed you for, that maybe has not manifested itself, but it makes it no less true. All right. So I'm going to talk about the business for a second. JP, you've been a chiropractor for how many years? And you had been introduced years back to AMC, took a big hiatus, came back 6, 7, 8 years later, right? Plugged back in. And then we had this magical moment at this Chinese restaurant, and things started changing from then on, right? And what was your collections thereabouts all those years? What was the best you could ever do?
Yeah, collections were definitely not the greatest in the world.
I don't mean to give your figures out to the whole world, but it was in the low teens.
If I had a good month, it was in the low teens.
Okay, so let's say $10K a month. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
All right. $10K a month, folks. Listen to this. He had been around AMC before. He had seen procedures. I hate the word protocols, scripts, whatever you want to call them. Of course, we don't use scripts, but he'd seen the system, but he had never had the identity, the value, the belief, or the purpose behind it. And what was his results? Didn't matter plugged in, not plugged in. 10K was about as much as he's going to do. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years, JP, as you have found your voice, you have found your purpose, you are passionate about the diversity branch and reaching the minorities of this profession. You have found a bigger purpose. You have a monstrous value. Now, have we done an immense amount of just transformational marketing since starting with you? The answer is no. I won't even give him the microphone. I'll just say the answer is no. But now, is it or is not the practice doing 3 to 4 times the amount a month in a matter of just a few years? So my point is, the same procedures, the same business model was in play years ago. The same philosophy may have been in play at that time. His technique may have been in play at that time. But since that meeting we decided that day, you and I made a partnership agreement. I just said, JP, I won't let go of your hand. Don't you let go of mine. If you do, I'm not chasing you. But I said, this can be a line in the sand moment. But from that day forward, all we ever did, the work that you and I've done has always been about, who are you, JP? What's your identity? What do you identify with in chiropractic? And then you have started to change your values, your beliefs, and your purpose. And all of a sudden now JP's interested in honing his technique. Have you and I ever had a conversation in all our years? Have you and I ever had a conversation about, JP, you ought to look at doing such and such technique? We've never talked about technique, but somehow you found your way to it, right? And you have found your way diving deeper into the green books and asking questions and calling these docs from all over the country and say, tell me about it. And then, of course, now the AMC system, we talked about the summits earlier and the depth and genius. And you said, I'm plugging in deeper than I've ever done. Where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? That's coming from the fact of, you change a man's identity or a woman's value, belief, and purpose, you change their life forever. And that's what you're doing out there on the road. I know that's what it's about, because everybody you're talking to at all those campuses, oh my gosh, folks, the person down the street, the person across the street from you, the chiropractor across the street, the doc a community away, the doc 5 states away, they all have potential. They all have potential, and potential is nothing more than truth in waiting. Why are you not helping like JP's doing? All JP wants to do is get out there and make a difference in the minority chiropractic world, right? I'm asking all listeners, you might not want to go get on a stage and travel all across the country to connect with a particular group. But why are you not connecting with the guy across the street or the lady 3 states away that you haven't talked to since school? They all have potential. Every one of them has greater potential. We all do. We are nothing more than the results or the evidence of our concepts of today. We all have greater potential, but you have to plug into these things that we're talking about.
Agreed. But yeah, it's a deeper dive than I've ever been before. It's highly beneficial in every way imaginable. Financially, it's fulfilling work. I love what I do. My patients have said it several times over coming in. You really love that job, don't you? And yes. I thank God while I'm adjusting people. Thank you for making me a chiropractor, Lord. I appreciate it. Yeah. But yeah, when you know what this stuff is and you actually catch it, yeah, the passion comes out. And this is, again, I love going to work.
And you didn't used to.
Nah, I used to drag. Come on, I got to go again. This is my practice. I got to go again. Yeah.
So I just want to tell you, JP, if I know you gave a shout out to Dr. Tara earlier, and that young lady does deserve multiple shout outs. I'm not sure I know of one greater example of a heart for chiropractic, specifically chiropractic students, more than Tara Horrell. She burns the midnight oil, or she burns the candle at both ends 24/7. And she does it with a heart of service, and she's got a big purpose, right? And her value systems and identity and belief of chiropractic, and more importantly, chiropractors, is enormous. And what a difference that she makes. But if I can just say it for all the listeners that love and appreciate you and what you bring to the AMC family and the difference that you make in the Aligned in Faith branch of AMC. We didn't even get into that today. Maybe I might give you a couple of minutes, just wrap your purpose around what that has meant over this last year, because that launched, what is it about me and you and food? I've been at a restaurant in Orlando, Florida, and I looked at him and I said, JP, the Lord's been laying something on my heart. What do you think what do you think would happen if we did this? And my goodness, you and I had no idea what God was unlocking when he gave us the vision of the Aligned in Faith ministry team. But again, purpose, identity, value, belief. What has that done to the Aligned in Faith team? I'm going to let you share a little bit about that as we close the show up. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the love and support that you have provided me over these years. As much as I have been for you, you have been for me. And I know I say thank you from all the people that you touch in your messages and in your influence from the front. And I know it's hard for everyone to believe that the guy that they get to see up front, speaking and influencing from the front, had no identity. He had no values. He had small belief system, and he had a small purpose just about 5 years ago. So tell me, folks, if there's not a better example than J.P. Whittaker of what God can do when you unlock and you tap into these core principles. People and times will change, but godly principles never do. JP, as we wrap it up, you have anything to share about the Aligned in Faith team? What's going on with that and where that started? And
yeah, we're going strong. We're going strong. We got all 4 legs of the Aligned in Faith team running now. Weekly devotionals going out under the direction of Dr. David Schmidt. Yeah, those are going, touching lives, getting the word out to people. The Bible studies, we got 6 clinics doing Bible studies across the country with their patients. Opened it up to their patients. We got a format laid out. That's changing lives. And we're still early. We're about 3 lessons in out of 10. And we're changing lives already. This is beautiful to see it. The prayer ministry is going strong. Direction of Dr. Bill Creeva. Yeah, it's going strong. And just knowing that you got somebody in your corner petitioning God on your behalf is major. Definitely major. And like I said, we're also tracking the results of those prayer requests when they get answered. So we will be able to rejoice at what God has done. And then definitely we got the missions teams, the mission trips getting set up, getting scheduled out so we can go out to the world and take chiropractic and the Lord Jesus Christ to somebody who may never experience either otherwise. It's a beautiful thing. I'll say this in closing. This is actually something that I tell my patients. The most important part of a person is their soul. But the soul, while you're on earth, is actually housed in a body that is controlled by the mind. When that body is not functioning properly, it will distract the mind and limit the soul. In restoring health to that body, you free the mind and free the soul, so it can accomplish whatever purpose God put it on this planet.
Ooh,
That's how big this thing is.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I think that's what they say in the industry is mic drop. All right, JP, love you, brother. I hope you know that. And thank you so much for joining me on the show. And I'm sure I speak for everybody. I hope that you will come back and we'll jump back on here and see what we can unpack together. So with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up. And by all means, if you haven't figured it out, JP talks and speaks at the summits. Not only the Depth and Genius, the Thursday afternoon courses, the Core One. We hadn't even talked about Core One and the impact that team's been making, the CA coaching and the CA training that's happening, the Apex program. This is all happening at summits, folks. And when you choose to only dip your toe in the water and only come to 2 or 3 a year, just think of what you're missing. So the summits are where it's at, and you've got one coming up soon. So make it a priority. With that, we'll join you next time. God bless.
Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course. And we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required. And we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.